you always ask the same three questions. Who are we? Mm-hmm. Where are we going? How are we getting there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Who are we is easy. Who you want to be. Mm-hmm. Where are we going is easy. How you're going to do it is the tough part. But really, at the end of the day, that's the fun part.
All right, good morning there, folks. Welcome to RenmanMusicandBusiness.com. My name is Steve Rennie, and I am the Renman, and this little program is called Renman Live. Hey, look, if you're looking to do something great in the music business, or in life for that matter, you're in the right place. Our guest today is Coach Rick Neuheisel, who is the lead football analyst at the Pac-12 Networks. He's also the former coach of the UCLA Bruins and also a musician-singer who likes to play a little music from time to time. He's here today to talk with us about what it takes to play your best when it counts the most. But before we do that, let me take care of a little bit of business. For you folks that aren't familiar with our website, for the last couple of years, we've been getting together here on Renman Live with some of the smartest, most talented, most successful people in the music business, and we're talking about today's music business. Today is our 100th broadcast, 100 times. Who thought of it? We kept doing one after another, and there we are. That's what I'm going to look like in another few years, folks. An old freaking bald man. Peace. Give me 2 more years. Give me 2 more minutes. Anyway, what makes our show unique is that we want you to be a part of it. We got a saying around here at the Ren World headquarters: you don't ask, you don't get, okay? And you don't learn anything. So when you get a chance to talk to some smart folks, I'd suggest you ask them some questions about things you don't know. So let me tell you how to do that. If you've got a question for Coach Neuheisel, you can post it on our webpage. There it is right there. You have to be a member to do that. It's free today. Might not always be the case, but you can post it online before the broadcast. We've got a chat room down below the web embed, and you can post your questions in there. Over on the right here is my lovely team today. We've got a new addition, Miss Kira O'Neill. Kira, she's tough. She's tough. She's going to be presiding over the chat room, so if you got a question, she'll funnel it my way. Over in the corner driving this mess is the Trojan man, Cody Romness, okay? You brought
Holy cow.
Yeah.
They promised that wouldn't be part of this deal.
I promised I wouldn't wear the helmet. Okay, baby. You can tell he's a little lit up. I'm thinking of that Bobby Gritch story last night, which we won't tell on the air. Anyway, you can post your questions over there. If you are feeling really bold, however, you can call in on our hotline, 310-469-9067. I think we already have somebody on hold today, don't we, Kira?
I think they dropped off.
Oh, they dropped off. Probably going to work. If you find the courage that you can find, you'll get in return one of these fine Fuck the Gatekeepers t-shirts, okay? When you run into some obstacles, you'll take them out. All right, there you have it. Finally, if you have a question about the music business specifically, not for our guests, you can ask that question on our Ask Renman section of the site. You've got a question, you post it there. I promise I'll answer. Got to be a member, though. So anyway, enough of all that business stuff. For you folks that don't live in Los Angeles, this is a big week here in LA. It's college football rivalry week, and that means USC, those Trojans, and the UCLA Bruins are going to be squaring off in one of the biggest rivalry in college sports. If you live here in LA, you know it's a big deal. Our guest today has been part of that big deal for the better part of 30 years now. First, as the quarterback of those UCLA Bruins from 1980 to 1983, where he led them to a Pacific 10 championship and also a Rose Bowl win, which is no small matter. He went on to coach for 3 years in the NFL in 2000, and also coached at University of Colorado and the University of Washington, where he got a Rose Bowl win as a coach. In 2008, he got his dream job coaching at UCLA, where he served for 3 years. Today, he's an Emmy-nominated analyst for the Pacific 12 Football Network, where he offers his own unique insight on college football from the booth instead of the sidelines. Ladies and gentlemen, Rick Neuheisel.
Renman, thanks for having me.
All right, there you have it. Oh, warm round of applause here.
Smattering.
Smattering. Come on, we're the coach, not the talent, okay?
A smattering of applause.
A smattering of applause. So, sometimes even a smattering is tough to get,
Yes, sir.
I want to, we've had a bunch of guests on our show, and for you, to familiarize you, the folks that are watching our show are typically folks that are dreaming of doing something big in the music business.
Those are the right kind of people.
Yeah, there are kind of people here. And while I know that some people out there are probably thinking, okay, football coach, music, I don't get it, right? But the truth is, you started as a lover of music and as a musician. And so I thought I would start our little conversation off about talking about how you got involved with music before you chose this other path.
Well, I'm like most, I think, your parents have such an influence on you as you're growing up. My mother wanted me to take piano lessons. So I, got on the keyboard and had Mrs. Sanoki, the piano teacher, would come over and help me. And frankly, I'd look outside. This is back before video games, when actually kids went outside and played. I'd see outside, and all my buddies were out there. And I'm going, Mom, can I do something other than piano? So she handed me a guitar, and I learned how to play a guitar at 10 years old and had the 3 chords. Hey Jude was my first song, and it was fun. It was therapeutic, if there is such a thing at age 10. It was one of those things you sit and you and I had a buddy that was in school that was a drummer, and a really good drummer. As a matter of fact, still playing. And so I was his guitar player. He needed somebody to come along. He should have aimed higher, but the bottom line is we had a lot of fun sitting in garages and sitting in rooms banging out what we thought were terrific licks. But it was my fantasy always to be a musician. And when you go to that first concert and you see that first star, I saw Elton John in 1975.
Is that your first concert, Elton John?
First concert in 1975, right after his Greatest Hits album had come out. And, it was like a 4-hour show.
Sure.
And I'm like, wow. Then the next one I saw was the Doobie Brothers. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And I told you when we played golf, I saw Styx. And
you're never going to believe this story, folks.
The warm-up band for Styx was AC/DC. And I didn't know any AC/DC songs, but I remember going, these guys are pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
You're usually the warm-up band, you're going to get to the act, but this I was paying attention.
Yeah.
Then I became a devout Jimmy Buffett fan.
Jimmy Buffett, early on?
Early on. A buddy of mine took me to a Jimmy Buffett concert, and different than the other acts, Jimmy Buffett had a rapport with the audience.
Yeah.
He had this conversation going on. And it drew me in. I remember him being able to talk about how this song came about. He was funny, the crowd was with him the entire time. Whereas the other, it was just banging out the songs.
Yeah.
And I always was drawn to that. And from then on, I've probably been to 20. I'm a true parrot head. I've been to 20 Jimmy Buffett concerts.
And he's been doing it, folks, for God knows, 30, 40 years. When I was a concert, we used to book 2-3 nights Jimmy Buffett, just blow it out every time. And he was doing the audience interaction and getting personal with your audience long before it was hip like it is today.
And I don't know that he ever was a recording artist.
One song.
Yeah. Margaritaville.
Margarita, too. And the Hamburger in Paradise or whatever. Cheeseburger in Paradise. Yeah. Yeah.
You're close.
Yeah, well, see, but it was important understanding the lyrics.
But the bottom line is, it was so entertaining to go to the show. Matter of fact, when I was coaching at UCLA as an assistant, I rented a school bus and got 30 tickets, and my wife and I made T-shirts. We called them Planned Parenthood, and we had these 30 people, and we were young at the time, so we had everybody over to the house for the pre-party. You had to have a pre-party if you're going to have a party, right?
Yeah.
And the pre-party got everybody so lit up drinking upside down margaritas that very few made it actually to Costa Mesa where the show was. But
hopefully nobody was driving.
No, the school bus was there. So we only had to take 2 pit stops for the ladies on the way there.
Yeah.
So it was. But those were the days, And I'm still a huge fan of live music, going and watching.
Well, we talked about, you saw Bruno Mars, was it?
Bruno Mars, what an unbelievable entertainer.
Yeah.
I really didn't know very many songs, but I was captivated by what stage presence and, again, to bring people along for the ride. Keith Urban, I saw him at the House of Blues, just this little small deal. Golly, shredded the guitar.
Did the wife come along?
The wife was there.
Yeah.
His wife? No, his wife I didn't see.
Yeah.
No.
She's, that's a good double act right there.
Yeah.
You know what? So it's good to know. It's interesting because, when you start with music as a hobby, some people want to make it a living, and then it takes on a whole different edge. You chose not to make it a living, but some would argue that you chose what might be the mirror path, one with shoulder pads, one with a guitar case. Talk about that.
Well, it's interesting how many
athletics, that is.
How many athletes wish they could be musicians, and how many musicians wish they could be athletes, because both are performers.
Yes.
Both are on a stage, have to perform when the lights come on, and are consummate entertainers. And those who can do that are exalted. And the idea, I don't know if people are fascinated more about the craft of performing or the exaltation that results from it if you perform well. I think those, if you're into it to get the adulation, you're going to be upset because that doesn't last forever. If you're into it because you really like honing your craft and you like what you do and people enjoy it, then that's just a bonus. But ultimately, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
The actors, they get to say cut, and start again.
Yeah.
But those who go on stage and actually have to do it, and those who have to go out and throw a ball in front of 100,000 and do it on 3rd down and 5, and you got to hit that pass, or golfers, you and I both have this love affair with golf. Anybody has to draw it back and hit it down a lined fairway with not only people but trees and things that are not conducive to your golf ball going in the right direction, and do it with the money on the line. That's hard to do. So they deserve that kind of
well, I want to talk
adulation.
about that whole idea, some of the parallels to, and again, for the folks that are out there watching today, there really are lessons to be learned, because I've been a jock my whole life too, even though I've loved being in music, and I wasn't musically talented at all. I recognized that early on. So I want to talk about some of those similarities, and the first and the most obvious one is you've spent the better part of your adult life as a football coach, right? And I've spent the better part of my adult life as a manager,
right?
And I've met a few coaches. Some of our friends.
We had the same job.
We have the same job in many ways. You've got a lot more people in your band, and maybe a few less for a manager. People used to ask me to describe what being a manager was, and I said it was part cop, it was part dad, it was part teacher, it was part philosopher, motivator, and so forth. If I ask you to describe what it is a football coach does, how would you describe it?
I think all those. I wore all those hats. And in the college world, where you also have to go out and recruit
we'll talk
those
about
that
too,
join your band, it's even another a hat to wear. Ultimately, you are trying to get the best out of a lot of people. And I used to use this term. You're looking for people who are committed, who will finish what they start. You've got to tell them what it is you're expecting from them, but they got to finish what they start. They've got the right attitude to get that done, meaning that the sky isn't falling. This is going to work. Half full rather than half empty people. You know what I'm talking about. And then you need people that are responsible no matter what role you give them, because everybody comes in wanting to be the starter, but there's only 22 of them in a football game. And you've got 85 scholarships. So you do the math. How many people are not going to get that role? You've got to do something else, but you've got to make it the most important role in the team. And that's true on a coaching staff. That's true throughout the entire administration of your football program. Everybody's got a role, and they've got to make it the most important. And as the head coach, you've got to value all those roles. That's hugely important. And you've got to know something about that role so that they know that you value it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, you've got to do it enthusiastically.
Yeah.
And you put all those together, the word is care. Commitment, attitude, responsibility, enthusiasm. If you care, you got a chance.
Yeah.
And therein lies the thing. And then the other thing, and I used to say this as we talk about the nexus between music and what I did in terms of coaching, I said, then you got to celebrate when you win. That's part of that enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You can't have a concert and not feel the jubilation.
Yeah.
Hey, we just won tonight, right?
Yeah.
And in football, there's a scoreboard that tells you when that took place. And when you do, you can't feel a sense of relief You have to feel a sense of
Yeah.
celebration. And if you do that, and I say we're going to party like a rock stars.
Yeah.
Party like rock stars, meaning that we're going to go out, not to be off the wall and get ourselves in trouble, but we're going to enjoy the adulation that comes with victory.
We talked about Bob Rotella, and he had a great line. I went to see him once about trying to do a better job in competition in golf, and we went and played some golf, and he goes, Rennie, you got out there on that golf course, and this swashbuckling manager goes away. All of a sudden, you're worried about failing and so forth. And I said, well, what's the recipe? Because Ren, instead of worrying about the losses, you got to focus on the wins, man. Enjoy the wins, embrace the wins. Treasure them, because there'll be fewer of those than losses if you're doing this a lot. But that whole idea, folks, for you out there when you're dealing with all the obstacles, you gotta love winning more than you hate losing. At the end of the day, that was another one of Doc's lines.
Amen. You have to love winning.
Let's talk about this idea. One of the other similarities, I think, between the music business, and in sports, is that whether you're a manager, whether you're a record label, whether you're a TV network or a football coach, you are in a position of judging talent before that talent has fully blossomed, right? And so along the way, you have some surprises. Sometimes you have some disappointments. When you are looking at football players to recruit, back in the day, right? What were the most important qualities? You touched on some, but I'm interested in that balance between great talent and great attitude, and where you might be able to make up for lack of talent with great attitude and still be successful.
There's a certain minimum you have to meet in terms of the measurables to be able to compete at the highest levels. I mean, there just are. You can't put somebody who has the most desire in the world that just doesn't have the frame to carry it and put him out there against Leonard Williams, currently defensive tackle for the USC Trojans. You can't do that. That's not fair to the kid, and he's not going to do it. But you're looking for a package of measurables that fall into, okay, this guy can play, physically cut the mustard. And then you're looking for that intangible of desire. The guy who just wants it so badly and will do what it takes to get it done. And then as you get that, you get excited about the guy. Then you want to know, okay, is he got an IQ for this? Now, there's a transcript we always pick up that says grades in this class and that class and so forth, and the university wants to make sure that he can survive the rigors of the curriculum at whatever institution you're at. But ultimately, what you're looking for, assuming that that's all in place, is that guy who just has the instincts for the game. I always say it in ways, if I can get a guy that I can have a conversation with about what he does, the position, the defense that he's playing, the offensive scheme that we're running, and we can have that conversation without a chalkboard, where we can keep track of where all 22 people are on the field and banter back and forth and never go up and have to draw, I got the guy. That's the guy that I want, because he feels the game.
Yeah.
He knows where he's to be relative to everybody else. He knows what indicators, and if you can talk about it and he can visualize it in his own mind without going, what?
Yeah.
What? Now you've got a football player. So I always started the process of evaluation by having this kind of conversation and say, okay, imagine you're the wide receiver and I give you cover 2 and you're running a corner route. Okay, and the corner starts to fall off. Are you going to try to cut it underneath him, or are you going to stay high? Because remember, there's a flat route underneath. And the guy will say, what? Or he'll say, Coach, you got to stay high, because if you come underneath him, the corner can cover both of us. If I stay high, the quarterback can take the flat route.
Yeah.
And I go, well, where will the quarterback throw the ball if you stay high? What about the safety? Well, then if the guy says, what? Now I have to go. But if he says, well, then he's got to shade it to the outside, to the sideline, away from the safety. You beat the corner with the decision. You beat the safety with the ball. That guy can play for me, assuming that all those measurables, he can run fast and he can catch. But that guy is going to be a good player.
Is that the difference between a Ryan Leaf and an Andrew Luck?
Well, Ryan
Leaf. Did you coach Ryan Leaf, by the way? I'm not picking on him.
Ryan Leaf was at Washington State, took his team to the Rose Bowl, and was a fabulous talent. And obviously had some off-field issues that we didn't know about at the time. Yeah. But Ryan Leaf, his problem was he wanted to be, we go back to why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it because you love it, or are you doing it because you want the adulation and the things that come from being good at it? He was more into being the quarterback in San Diego rather than learning the craft of quarterbacking.
Yeah.
And because of that, it soured, and it soured quickly, and he didn't have the mechanism to handle and because ultimately, to rise to the top, whether you're the manager of a great band or you're the head coach, you're going to take some slings and arrows now. You're going to get booed. You're going to be that guy bloodied in the arena that everybody's going to be casting stones at. And whether you're tough enough to handle that and get back up off the mat and find a way into the next arena is all about the mettle that you possess.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. And I kind of knew what the answer was because for years people have asked me, what do you look for in a band? And I said, of course, it's talent. But even after all these years, as you mentioned, there's a certain prerequisite level of talent when you get to the top of the college, top of football, top of the charts. So the talent is there. And that what ultimately was the thing for me was their attitude, because I knew I was going to have to live with them. And I was going to have to go through all those ups and downs, and their ability to process and handle that and rebound from
you
that
guys don't have home
huge.
games. You don't have home games. Everything's a road game for you.
Yeah, everything is a road game, and so it's difficult. Let me talk about something that's kind of related to that. I kid around, only half kiddingly, that fear, insecurity, and paranoia are the building blocks of the freaking music business, right? Everybody's got it, right?
Yes.
It's only a question of degree, right? If I had to make a general observation, even as the host now and putting together my own little world here, the talent gets hit harder by that, okay? Because they're the ones ultimately being judged, And I found that when that fear, insecurity, and or paranoia or combination take over, nobody can play their best, right? You must have faced that with some of your players. And if you did, how did you work them through it?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's just given to the players. I think coaches have that as well.
Just degrees.
I used to sit in the locker room with Terry Donahue, who was, without question, the best coach UCLA's ever had. 20 years at the helm and terrific run at the Rose Bowls. He won 3 in 4 years at one point. But he would sit in the locker room like this, and I'm this young, spry, 27-year-old coach. I go, Coach, this is the greatest day of our lives. We get to play in the Rose Bowl. We get to have it. He goes, and he'd look up at me and he just cast this disgust in his eyes. He says, you just don't understand. You don't understand what happens to the coach's life if we're not successful. And I never looked at it that way, even when it got dark for me and I was fired at UCLA, which, as you said, was my dream job. I mean, I never envisioned that portion of the dream.
Well, we'll talk about that.
But ultimately, the fear that it goes in can be paralyzing if you allow it to be. And so what you have to do is you have to channel that as energy. So I used to always talk about it as a coach to the players. I said, you're supposed to feel that. If you don't feel that, you don't belong here. You haven't earned the right to be here. Being here is supposed to give you those butterflies. It's supposed to give you that anxiety. But what your calling card, what your ace in the hole is that you've prepared. You have put the 10,000 hours. You have done all the things necessary to be here. I wouldn't be talking to you if you didn't have it. Now it's just let it go and go enjoy it. You and I were talking the other day about Kevin Prince, my quarterback at UCLA, who had great days and then he had some not so great days. And he throws an interception at the end of the first half against Washington State. And we're behind, and we're getting booed. And he really is the only quarterback I have now that can play, because Brett Hundley is redshirting. Richard Brehoe breaks his ankle in the first half of the game, and so it's me and Prince. And I'm walking off arm in arm with him, and I'm saying, Kevin, you hear that booing? They're booing both of us. It's not just you. It's not me. It's both of us. And we deserve it. That wasn't good enough, what we just did right there. There's more in you, and there's more in me. We're going to figure this out together because we're all we got. It's you and me. It's like that guy in the World War II gets all his troops. They're going to try to take the island, and they land on the coast of or the island with the boats. And he says, "All right, now burn the boats." They're all looking at each other. How are you burning the boats? He says, there's no way off this island.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody thinking we can retreat. So we're burning these. Now we're all in this together. Let's find a way to win, accomplish the mission. And that's what Prince did. We ended up coming back winning 28-25. We walked off the same way. I said, you hear that cheering? I said, they're cheering you. They're still booing me.
Yeah, well, see, I was thinking that the whole time because it was a great idea.
I knew you
It was
were.
going to be the talents idea, and it comes with the territory. As a coach or a manager, you can't. It's your job to let the players revel in the win.
Absolutely.
And not say what a genius I was, but yes, I can relate to those moments. Let me talk about another similarity that comes to mind. That I think there's some parallels for our indie artists out there to talk about. In the college world, football, there's tons of college football programs out there, right? But they're not all created equal. You've got different levels. You got your Division I teams and your Division II, and I don't know how many divisions.
And a caste system within Division I as well.
Okay, and then when you go down to Division III or something like that. So, in USC and UCLA, for anybody that's not familiar, we get some folks from out of the country watching, or Division I teams. In the music business, I think there's that little separation as well. You got your major labels and you've got your independent artists, right? The major labels typically dominate, right? They have more money, they have more infrastructure, they have bigger staffs, and it gives them muscle, right, that some of the other labels just don't have, right? At UCLA, you were in charge of a great program that had a great history. Right. But the truth is, if you get behind the curtain, even in the Pac-12 where you spend a lot of your time, they're not equal.
They're not apples
Oregon
to apples, right?
It's not a private school, but they have a big benefactor, Phil Knight, Nike, that has got more money than countries. You've got Stanford, private university with a ton of money, a ton of resources, and you have your friends here at USC,
right,
who also have. It's a private school and have tons of resources. I think the indie artists find themselves in that same situation where they have talent, they want to play on the same battlefield, but they don't have the same resources. Talk about what it takes to compete against those bigger, badder rivals and win.
Well, it's a challenge, and it's a secret. One of the hardest portions for the coach in that deal is that very few people understand how that isn't the same, because we're both in the same conference, we're both in the South Division. How can we not have the same advantages? Well, when I was at UCLA, our budget for football was about 3/5 of the budget of USC. So 60% of the money, our training table, for the NCAA rules, just as an example, at the time allowed one meal a day. Our training table was about $26 per meal per guy a day, which sounds like a lot of food, right? But when you looked and saw that the labor costs in that $26 were about half, so you're getting $13 of food. And then you look across town, and USC's food cost was $48, $8 of labor cost because it wasn't as union, because of private school. And so $40 to $13 of food a day is a way you get ahead in nutrition. We always look at a scoreboard and say, okay, they're ahead. There is no scoreboard for all these little things. And the deal that I made with Dan Guerrero when he offered me the job was, hey, we're not going to talk about it because we were hamstrung by the Poly Pavilion project. Poly Pavilion was costing an arm and a leg to redo. And all the money in the department was going towards that, including all the fundraising. So some things that seem basic for me as a head football coach, knowing that football is the bell cow of every athletic department, shouldn't be in need of things, we didn't get. Like for instance, I wanted to use the Wilson football, which I think is the superior football. The NFL uses the Wilson football. But we had a deal with Adidas, and Adidas didn't mind us using the Wilson football, but they were going to take $30,000 back off the table. Well, that money was too important to the department and the bottom line, so we used the Adidas football. By the way, right now, UCLA is using the Wilson football. So things have changed a little because the Pac-12 new television deals have infused some money into the program. But the bottom line is it's not apples to apples. And so as the leader, that you can sit and lament and talk about what we don't have, or you can focus on what we do have.
Yeah.
And therein lies leadership.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have the resources, you need to talk about what we do have, and that's why I made very little in the way of complaining about all that. I just said, here's what we have, here's what we need to do, here's how we're going to get to where we're going. Now, unfortunately, when you're building a program, there's no free agency in college football. You have to build it through recruiting, and so you keep bringing kids in, and and sometimes because if you're a little devoid of talent, you have to play guys as freshmen, and you miss that year of physical development, so you're getting guys into that fifth year. Teams that are laden with seniors have an advantage because of the physical development that they've enjoyed, plus the maturity in the program.
Experience.
And so you keep finding a way. I mean, I was playing with a freshman left tackle, a wonderful kid by the name of Jeff Baca my first year there. I was playing with a third-string quarterback because both my quarterbacks had gotten hurt in spring football, lost for the season. And it was almost a suicide mission to go out there against some of these great defensive ends for poor Jeff Baca and try to get these guys. And yet we muddled through and found a way to win 4 games. Outside looking in, horrible year. Knowing what we had and what we were doing, and we had wins against Tennessee and Stanford, last-second wins, phenomenal effort by the kids.
Yeah.
But you can't make excuses.
No,
you
I think
you gotta do what you gotta do.
This is always, it's funny. One of my guests was in here, was a manager for years, and he said, I always love coming on your show, Rennie, because it's a chance for us managers to bitch and cry and piss and moan a little bit and tell the truth, because nobody gives a shit, really, honestly, right? But the things for the folks out here watching that are indie artists trying to make some sense out of this, I think the moral of this story is, you get what you get. Yeah. Okay? You get your opportunity.
And have your own definition of victory.
Exactly. You decide, where you are, where you want to go, and there is something to be said for defining your wins, defining what little wins are, because they add up, don't they?
And therein lies the biggest key, and that's why I get back to people ask me, how do I become a coach? I said, first of all, you got to love coaching. You can't want to be a coach because you want to be on the sideline of the USC-UCLA game. You got to want to be because you want to teach young players how to get better, and you got to take great joy from that. And one of my greatest coaching thrills, when I got fired at Washington, I'm sitting there dealing in a lawsuit, trying to win back my honor, right? And so I realized I'm not coaching. So I take a job at a inner city high school. Rainier Beach High School, the Fighting Vikings.
Not a lot of pay there, I bet.
I was the only white guy on the team.
Yeah.
and the guys all thought it was a publicity stunt. I said, no, I'm here to coach. And I said, I'm going to prove it to you. So 2 days later, I went around 75 guys and told them everybody's name and told them their position and their nickname. I just made it a point. I'm going to memorize every one of these guys' names so they know I'm here for real. And I walked down the stretch lines and went, hey, my quarterbacks' names were Junior, Tubby, and Biscuit. and I mean, it was a fabulous experience. These kids, I took them to Subway one time because my quarterback fell out at halftime of a game. And I said, what's the matter? He hadn't eaten since the day before. So I said, we're going to have a pregame meal. So I take my quarterbacks to Subway. They'd never been through a Subway store. They didn't know how to order. And I said, so I told them, get the foot long.
Yeah.
What do you want?
You get two.
Point at what you want. It was like Christmas morning for these kids.
Yeah.
And they came back to the locker room with these sandwiches, and the guys are like, where are ours? Yeah. I said, well, now I got to go get everybody.
You guys got to learn to show up on time.
But it was one of the great lessons of my life that I can have as much fun doing this as I had in the Rose Bowl, because these guys are getting such great joy out of it.
Yeah.
And we beat the Have Everything team, the parochial school in town, in a great game. My guy Biscuit threw a touchdown pass to James, a little wingback, and scored a touchdown. We beat him 14-7. And I remember being in that locker room after that game, and it was every bit the same as the Rose Bowl. So it isn't. There's an old book by a guy, Frosty Westerman, who coached at Pacific Lutheran up in Washington. He says, make the big time where you are. And that's the essence of it. You make the big time where you are. He had this great year of Rose Bowl wins, and you took a team to number 3 in the country. I had 3 teams that finished in the top 10. But my best coaching job, no question, my best coaching job was my last year at UCLA, where we went, all of a sudden had a winning record in the South Division. Even though I got beat 50-0 by your alma mater, it was still a heck of a
Cody was there, I confirmed yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, so, but we ended up representing the South in the first ever conference championship game, and basically found ways to patch it together and make guys believe, even though there were going to be some tremendous downs, you had to build back up. And a season where we were on the cusp of not making a bowl game at Washington, and we found a way to win the Northwest Championship, which we coined ourselves.
We have a couple of questions here from our viewers out there that on our
proof that there actually is somebody watching. I thought it was just you and me.
I'm going to ask you one that kind of picks up on that, the idea of the 50-0 loss, not the specifics of it. But I'm going to ask you one here that I just saw posted here. It says, his name is King, or that's his screen name.
That's who he is today.
That's who he is today. And you know what? He just said his win. He's the king. Okay, I'm not going to argue with him. It says, as a UCLA alum and music fan player, how do you feel about the Doors' lasting impact on the world of music and Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek's close association to UCLA's film school? And by the way, thanks for beating down you gave my Fighting Illini in the Rose Bowl. We're still grieving over that, and that was my best Matt. All right.
You know,
how do you plead?
I got to meet Robbie Krieger. I met him a couple years back, but I got to actually hang out with him this summer. Have you ever been up to the Bohemian Grove?
No.
So the Bohemian Grove.
But I did meet Robbie Krieger one night.
Robbie Krieger's up there at the Bohemian Grove, and he's playing, and he plays in all these different camps. They're like fraternities, but they're camps. And he's phenomenal. And everywhere he went, I'd go, Robbie, tell me about Jim Morrison. I mean, because we've seen the movies. He says the greatest guy I ever met. And that's all I needed to know. You know, if the guy who played with him, who's still around, still playing the same songs, and can sit and say that about the guy, rather than, hey, we saw this as the showman, but behind the scenes he wasn't.
Yeah.
This guy said he was the greatest guy he ever met.
Yeah.
And every time he plays, he says, God bless Jim Morrison.
You know what?
That's good enough for me.
I listen to Sirius Radio all the time in the car now, right? Mostly for
Channel
a lot
91 when you want to hear some college football stuff.
I might have to dial in on that one, but I listen to all kinds of stuff. But I love Sirius XM, the classic vinyl, where you can relive all these moments. Okay, that's a brighter stuff. On this notion, we talked about fear, insecurity, and failure. And the fact of the matter is, if you're going to win, the prospect of losing is always there, and some wins are more dramatic, some losses are more dramatic, but W's are W's and L's are L's.
Fact.
And they don't have a lot of freaking editorial there. One of our members by the name of DJ Vo asked a question: what's the biggest failure that you learned a valuable lesson from, Coach Neuheisel?
Well, there's no question when you get fired, it's not only a failure, but it's a very public failure. And there's lots of ways to deal with it. I mean, you want to tell the world why. It wasn't me.
Even though they may not care.
And ultimately, Rennie, that's it. They don't care. They see it, and bitterness. And this is the lesson. The bitterness from failure only hurts you.
I agree.
Only hurts you. It will never, ever do anything to anybody else, because they're moved on, and you need to as well. And I love talking to guys older than me, because they've been there and they've done that. And so it's amazing how many guys, all older than me, no one has ever said this to me who's younger than I am. The best thing ever happened to you about getting fired.
Yeah.
Because you're going to now find out, number one, who your buddies are. Number two, something better is going to happen. It's just always how it works out. As long as you stay competitive and you don't go into a hole and deal and wallow in your self-loathing and all the people that did you in. And it's unbelievable how accurate it is. So I would just say, don't be bitter. Just move on.
No, it's so funny. I got fired this year after 16 years, and it does sting a little bit, but the truth is, you're constantly in a process of finding, what it is that gets you out of bed in the morning, whether you're 20 years old or, damn near 60 years old, I want to talk about something else that dovetails in all of this, and not to dwell on UCLA, but it is USC-UCLA football week, and whether you got fired or not, you got a lot of great track record over at that freaking joint. Just ask the Trojans, okay? I found that one of the toughest things to manage in the music business was expectations, right? Expectations from your business partner, the record labels, from your fans, from your band members.
Bingo.
You know?
Yep.
We all hear the story in the music business about the band takes 10 years to write their first record and they have a huge success.
Right.
And then they got 10 months to write the next one. I'm thinking of Imagine Dragons, whose manager we've had on the show, who now have that dreaded second album coming out, right?
Yeah, you still got more juice, exactly.
When you came to UCLA, I don't know if Cody has the graphic there. I can recall very vividly as a USC fan seeing this, opening the paper and thinking, "Fuck, okay, they've got fucking Neuheisel in here now. This is, this could be bad."
It's a great ad.
It was beautiful. But it was
had
by the way,
nothing to do with it.
But by the way, it was very un-UCLA.
Very
you know what I mean?
un-UCLA.
That was kind of an SC fucking cocky, arrogant move there, right? But the point I'm making is that expectation can be just the biggest burden in the world, right? Talk about how you dealt with all that expectation, and then I want to talk about what you're doing now.
Well, two things. Number one, that ad, while I had nothing.
Hope that doesn't think up any.
No. I had nothing to do with it. All of a sudden, I was as surprised as anybody when I saw it in the newspaper. I went into work. I said, "Well, I guess we're on. It's game on, right?"
Cody, was that in the locker room at USC?
On every locker.
Game on, and the marketing folks, because I had returned and was a quote an alum, felt like, hey, we needed to kickstart this thing. But the thing you have to do, whether it be in the music business or football or anything, you have to finance your expectations. If you're not, you can say you're going to be the best, but if you're going to be the best, you have to finance that expectation. To me, I always was of the mind, look, if we're going to be 60% of the budget of USC, then that's fine, but we have to be honest with those people who are thinking that we're going to beat them every year of where this is in respect to our
Pardon that
our
format,
importance.
yeah.
No worries. It's my agent.
Yeah,
saying,
agent. Okay, put him in on the phone.
Yeah. But ultimately that's the bottom line. So if you're trying to get to there, then you have to have the money that can help take you there.
Yeah.
You just got done talking about the big labels. Why are they big? Because they have some money behind them
huge.
to create them. That doesn't mean they're impervious to making poor decisions and all that.
No, money alone won't get it to happen, but it helps.
Yeah, but you and you have to be really, really smart if you're on a lesser budget and take your chances when it's necessary. That was an unnecessary chance to take if it's going to be spread across every locker in USC with a smaller budget. It was bold, and I'm always been about bold. I don't have any problem being out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't complain when it came out, but it should have been brought along with some financing for that.
Well, I can speak for all the USC folks, right, who've never lacked for confidence or swagger. And I know when I was talking to some of the guys, they go, this fucking Neuheisel guy, he's a shit stirrer. Something's going to happen over here,
Well, something happened.
And it was good. But, even the best things, come to an end, good news or bad. Every coach that's been hired has been fired. Every label exec that was on top of the world is gone. Every manager, the same thing.
Right.
And then it comes down to what you're going to do to get yourself out of bed at night. And we've been working on this course of mine for years, which is really all these ideas I've had in my head that have been my pep talks, my halftime speeches, right? And one that's always, been near and dear to me is this idea of finding your true north and finding out and getting a compass, for where you want to be in life. And it starts with, here's where I am and here's where I want to be. So I was a manager and get fired, you were a coaching fan, and then it's like, okay, what do I do next, right? And for me, I'd already kind of started, I think subconsciously plotting my next step and thinking, what, I'm not sure I want to be on the sidelines forever. I've had an I've gotten my Rose Bowl ride done. I did it with a wonderfully talented group of guys with all the craziness that can go on with bands and managers, right? And so for me, going into this little internet broadcasting thing and trying to be a mentor was something that was calling me. You took a role as a sports analyst, a football analyst. Talk about how that role evolved, and where you want to go with it now. You've been nominated for an Emmy Award.
Yeah.
And I've watched you on TV. You're freaking really good at it, Neuheisel.
Oh, you're kind. You said something there that spurred. It's the same with teams, bands. I'm sure. You always ask the same three questions: Who are we? Mm-hmm. Where are we going? How are we getting there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Who are we is easy. Who you want to be. Mm-hmm. Where are we going is easy. How you're going to do it is the tough part. But really, at the end of the day, that's the fun part. Mm-hmm. I had a team at the University of Washington that lost their first conference game to Oregon. So we were sitting there 3-1 on the season, but 0-1 in the conference. And the next week was against a really, really good Dennis Erickson coached Oregon State team. Mm-hmm. And the Friday night before the meeting, I always have a conversation with him, and I said, I want everybody to imagine that I have a button right here, and I could press this button, and we would all be hurtled into the future, and we'd be in Pasadena. We'd all be given our Rose Bowl gear. We'd be wearing the sweats. We'd be at the Disneyland, getting to the front of the roller coaster
rides. Steaks at Lowry's.
Steaks at Lowry's. We're having big time prime rib. We're doing the whole thing, and then we get to play in the Rose Bowl. But we don't get to earn it. We don't get the ride to find out if it really would have happened had we not been hurdled there. I said, how many of you want to press the button? And everybody sits and says nothing. And I said, there is no button. But no one would push it anyway. Yeah. We're here for the journey.
For the ride.
We want to see if we can do it. And so how are we getting there is the fun part. It's hard, it's risky, you're going to fall down, you're going to get skinned up, you got to get back up, you're going to find a way, but that is where life is.
Yeah.
No one comes back 20 years later for the reunion to look at the trophy.
Yeah.
They come back to see who they went on the ride with. That's why you do it, and ultimately, this broadcasting thing, Larry Scott came out to me on the field before the Oregon game, the first championship game in the Pac-12, and says, hey, I may have an opportunity for you. I said, I don't know if you've been reading the papers. I'm actually looking for opportunities.
I could be available.
I think I'm available. But we talked about it. I was thinking about going back to the NFL and coaching as an assistant. I could have gone with Rex Ryan. But this sounded interesting, and I wanted to see about it. And it was a brand new league, and I was a brand new broadcaster, brand new network. So maybe I could, grow with it. And it's gone tremendously well. I don't know how many people watch the Pac-12 network. If you don't, you should.
More people than are watching this webcast.
It is fun, but I get to talk about something I love. Mm-hmm. I get to talk about what happens in the locker room, both from a player perspective and a coaching perspective. I get to sit and say that was a great decision, that was a poor decision. I always, when I say it's a poor decision, remind everybody I got beat 50-0. But here's what I think should have been done.
But you learned something from those things.
But and my wife, I taught her football on a cafe, sitting at a dining table, and I got all the sugar packets out, and I started moving them around. I said, "This is football's math. It's angles. It's numbers. That's what it is." So we now have a segment on the show we call the Sugar Packet Shuffle, where I basically move.
Take that down, Cody. Sugar Packet Shuffle.
Sugar Packet Shuffle. We move things around so that people can see football's not as complicated as it might look on television.
It's funny. I'm just loving this today. I feel like I'm going to have to quit the rest of the day and go out and play golf with you again to finish the conversation. But, it's fun sometimes doing all that because you have been in it. You've been down in it. There's so many schools and places where people want to learn the music business right now, and they always ask me where I learned. I said, I learned by doing it. I learned by fucking things up. I learned by winning and losing.
What's fascinating for me, though, when I sit and listen to people that are in the music business, I know what I like because I hear
We got a phone call. Tell them don't leave. We're going to take that one.
Finish be right there. But I just want to. But when they start talking about the measures and because music's math,
sure,
and you start listening to it and the measures and how the guys who are in it, they may have long hair and you think they didn't go to class and all that stuff. They're smart as shit.
Yeah,
they know what those measures are and they can morph it into creating all these. It's fascinating, and that's basically what coaches do. It's the same math, trying to find a numbers advantage, something new, something different, and riding it.
Well, I can tell you're enjoying it, and and I think you got bigger days ahead of you on that note. But we got a call over here. Who do you got, Kira? Don from Detroit is
Michigan fan, Don?
Don, you're on with Coach Neuheisel.
Yeah, not this season though.
Not. Oh, now who's gonna? Now you Brady Hoke fan, or you think it's time for a change?
No. Brady Hoke needs to be on his way to like Easter this year, so he's got to go. He just got to go.
I'm
Don,
sorry,
that's tough.
I understand the reality of the situation, but I'm telling you, Brady Hoke's a good football coach.
All right, what's your question, Don?
He was a good player back in the day, but I don't know about coach.
Can you put him up a little bit in the mix there, Code?
Yeah, sure.
All right, hang on, Don.
What you got for us, Don?
You get your question. Don, what's your question here, Chief?
It's for Rick. When he's looking at talent, would he actually go for somebody maybe a little less in the talent department, but a little more heart and a little more desire? And I ask that because a lot of times I'm looking to maybe do something like Richard Gottier does with the Orchard. And a lot of times here in the Detroit area, I've paid attention to the music scene, and there's a lot of some guys, maybe not quite as talented, but a little more heart and desire and want to learn some new stuff, and maybe be able to get them a little less expensive, so to say, as opposed to somebody that thinks they've already made it.
You know, you certainly can't build a football team or a band with guys that aren't talented enough. Okay, you have to be careful.
You just go.
There's a requisite amount of talent. But if you've got somebody that you think has real potential for growth, whether it be physical growth or because of his acumen for the game or for whatever it is you're evaluating him in, he has a chance to really take it to the next level, and there's something about the guy, your instincts just tell you there's something about this guy, he's a winner, he's going to help us win, then absolutely. You know, recruiting classes are usually 25 people. You're not going to get 25 5-stars, okay? So I always worked from the 25th back to the first. I always was going to have room for a 5-star, but I was always trying to make sure I wasn't getting stuck with the worst of the 3 stars. So I would always evaluate the 3 stars harder than the 5 stars because I wanted to make sure and recruit them early, knowing I was going to end up with them anyway, to make sure I was getting the best of those guys who were under the radar for everybody else.
Right.
There you got it. Okay, Don, does that answer your question?
Go Blue, Don.
So thank you very
Hey,
much.
Don.
Go Blue.
Don, give your email address to Kira over there. We'll send you either a coffee mug or one of those fine Fuck the Gatekeeper t-shirts.
I'm a big coffee drinker. I'd love to have that mug every
Code,
morning.
send him 2 freaking mugs, okay?
Hey, Don, they need you to call back so they can get your information.
Yeah, you got
I love this, Steve. Thanks for great.
Thanks for calling in here. Speaking about finding those little gems out there, for years when I've gone out to play golf at our favorite club, somebody will yell out, "Hey, Rennie, how are the boys?" Right? And as a manager of a rock band for 16 years, I'd always ask them, "Which boys are you talking about? The Incubus boys or the Rennie boys?" And while I often thought of those Incubus guys in a kind of fatherly way with all the baggage that comes with it, right? They're clients, and clients come and go, teams come and go, football players come and go. But your kids are forever, right?
Yes.
My kids now both want to be in the music business, in spite of my best efforts to try to talk them into doing something differently. So I spend a lot of time now, in some way, I suppose, coaching my own sons about the music business. I want to play a clip here of Coach Neuheisel in action. Coach, you have it over there? That I saw this and I wanted to freaking cry, Rick.
Okay, hold on.
Well, there you go.
One-on-one over here, Jared.
Watch this.
Keep it.
Hey,
Jared, keep it, Jared.
Yeah, right there. He's
Hold
on the
again.
I don't
You're
think
going to
so.
walk in, son.
I don't think that
Come on, kid. Come on, kid.
this guy did go.
Come on, Jared. Come on, Jared.
Got it! Got it!
Sluggo, Jordan Payton, baby. Look at it. Look at it. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Knowing you as a father, and I've played golf with one of your sons, I've met Jerry, I couldn't help but watching and trying to figure out where the coach stopped, the father began, the supporter began, the old quarterback
There was definitely
kicked in.
a morphing going on.
Oh, God, it was going on. There's Jerry on top, which must be, we talked about this yesterday, that's a moment, a story you can tell for a million years. And who's that guy on the left?
That was me.
That was the young Neuheisel.
Many moons ago.
Oh, God. Talk about how good that feels when you can take credit a little bit for a great job of coaching.
You know, Ren, all of us as parents, we invest so much in our kids, right? If we're doing it well, if we're doing it, we like to all think, we like to think we all do it well, but we invest so much of our emotion. We want so many good things to happen for them, and we also see with our own eyes how hard they work for it, right? And if you see the investment by them, you just keep your fingers crossed that something good will come of it, because we all know that's the formula. Hard work usually results. So you get this chance on the stage. He goes in Jerry's world of all places, right?
Yeah.
In Arlington, Texas, and a game against a big-time rival in University of Texas, big-time marquee program, and they're behind, and now they have to come back and win the game. And he throws the touchdown pass. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then you saw him. He's on the shoulders of his team. I mean, it is impossible.
He didn't say it, I did. Go ahead.
It is impossible to believe that could really happen. If they did that in a Hollywood movie, you'd say, it's too corny.
Yeah.
We've seen that. That's Rudy, right? That's Rudy.
Yeah.
We've already seen that one. And here it is, your own boy. So.
And your kid wasn't drafted or get a scholarship,
No, he
right?
got a scholarship.
Oh, he did? Okay.
I gave him one.
Oh, okay. Like the presidential pardon.
And as a matter of fact, Dan Guerrero, the AD, said, "Don't you think he should walk?" And I said, "Dan, this guy can play. This is a deal breaker."
He just
here.
proved it.
And I think Dan now knows he can.
Good.
But ultimately, for all parents, whether it's the piano recital or the kid going into the game, we're with them. And when they hit the final note and it's perfect, you're like, yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to sit on the sidelines of the music business and see what the Rennie boys might come up with.
They'll make you proud, I guarantee it.
Yeah,
You'll
they
have
will.
that moment.
Okay, now you're a big-time sports analyst now. I'm a former manager. You're a former coach, and that's all fun. But now we're in the business of sitting on the sidelines in a much safer, more comfortable position.
Can't hear them boo you.
No, you can't hear him. But no, everybody wants to be your friend. Every artist I talk to goes, "That's a fucking great idea, Ren." And I'm thinking, wow, I haven't had that experience in a long time. So I'd be remiss now without asking you for your football analyst view of the game this week. And I'm going to ask you to dispense with the fact that you were star UCLA quarterback.
I will play it right down the middle.
You know, you were a coach. Great. I don't give a shit. Because I'm an SC guy, okay? What's the keys in this game this weekend for SC UCLA? Big game for both of them.
Okay, here's how I have this game broken down in my own mind. Both teams have a 70% passer. That's astounding, okay? The reason they're 70% is they're taking lots of easy throws. A great majority of UCLA's passes are within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage or even behind the line of scrimmage. Little balls out to the back, which in essence, in the world of spread offense, is running game. Okay, in the old days, it was called the power, the sweep, where Jerry Kramer and Fuzzy Thurston would get out in front of Paul Hornung. Okay, those days are gone. That now it's called a bubble screen. Okay, and that's how the ball gets out there. And because of the viability of Brett Hundley as a runner, people tend to gravitate towards the box, and those plays become very easy for UCLA to execute. So if the team that keeps those easy yards from happening, it's able to shut down the easy throws and get people into second, 8, 9, and 10, is the team that's going to win. Now, here's the interesting thing that's happened this week that it might tilt the balance. Josh Shaw for USC, their corner who got in some trouble early before the season started, got reinstated this week. If you insert Josh Shaw into this lineup, and assuming that he's ready to play, now that's a big assumption because he hasn't played, but if you assume and put him into the boundary as a corner because he's physical, he can line up against Jordan Payton, their boundary receiver, who's been terrific this year, and beat him up.
Make him work.
Beat him up. Because that 8 to 9 yard curl route into the boundary has been their go-to on third down and 8 to 9. If you take that away, you can roll your coverage to the field and take away those easy yards from Brett Hundley. So now it becomes, okay, what is the running game going to, how much fruit will it bear with Paul Perkins? Leonard Williams is the best player in the Pac-12, bar none. He will be the first guy selected in the NFL draft from this conference.
SC guy.
Yeah, Leonard Williams at number 94, if you're watching. He looks like he's tight end. He's about 6'7". He's a 308-pound guy, but he looks svelte, if that's possible to be 308 and look svelte. The guy's a beast. If they can take that away, the easy yards, make Brett Hundley throw it down the field, cage him, meaning not necessarily sack him. Utah sacked him 10 times. I don't think that's necessary. But if you can get him to stay in there and have to look down the field and not with his security blanket into that boundary, it can be a long day for the Bruins. I say it this way, because the thing that has been true from the beginning of the season to now, USC lacks depth. The sanctions still have their feeling in the program when it gets down to depth. If UCLA runs 85 plays in this game, meaning that they stay on the field, have a high third down conversion percentage. If that happens, SC is in trouble. If SC can limit that, keep a low third down conversion rate, get 30 plays out of Shaw, banging the heck out of Peyton into the boundary, I think the Trojans have what they need, because Buck Allen and Nelson Aguilar have had fantastic seasons.
Yeah, they got a great. I'm not a football coach, and probably wouldn't make a great analyst, but I'm going to give my observation, which is if the Trojans can find a way to get the lead down to the 59-minute mark, and remember you got to play all the way to 60, we got a good shot here. It'll be a great game no matter what, I'm sure. Is that another phone call over there? Is that just the phone we forgot to unhook this morning? You know, so we're still learning here on the job. You got a professional staff.
It's the 100th show. Why should you know everything?
You know, well, we got most of it working. Now we're just down to details. You know, so it must be like, you know, you line up, you got the play, and some guy's off sides, right? You go, what the hell?
I couldn't make it to 100 wins, so I feel good about it.
I'm not sure they were all wins, but we did get to 100 here. Okay, you know, we're running a little bit overtime here, so before I let you go, I want to say who we got coming up. Next week on the show, we got Renman Live is with Steve Schnur, who is the president of music at Electronic Arts. It used to be you heard about radio, or you heard a song on the radio, and that was pretty much it. Today, you mentioned video games. So many people are discovering music through video games, and the music business today, more and more, is all about getting the music to where people are instead of the places the industry wanted them to be. So Steve's going to talk about video games, and that is a new platform for discovering music. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank the Trojan man over there, Cody Romness. He will not be on the field, okay? And by the way, do we have that? No, we had the picture sent over of your win yesterday. Just for the. We do have it now. Okay. Fuck it. Here, I want to show you how Rick Neuheisel made up for that little smoking. He played with a couple of Trojans yesterday.
Victory!
Notice suspiciously absent in that picture is your fucking best golfing manager who got smoked. Neuheisel, you know, I'm questioning how much time you're spending on this new gig. Shot 70, which is even par out there at Bel Air Country Club. Which is no small issue. So anyway, I want to thank Cody for driving over there, with the exception of that phone incident. Has been good. We have Kira O'Neill, who moved out here from Miami. She's one of our longest running supporters, and I won't tell you how she volunteered today, but it was very convincing, Kira. And that's it. So if you're dreaming of doing something, and of course I want to thank you, Rick, for showing up here today, of course. Folks, if you're out there dreaming of doing something big in the music business or in life, make today the day you stop dreaming and start doing. My name's Steve Rennie. I am the Renman, and I am out of here. See you December 3rd.